Quinton Ray was down to his last chance to turn his life around. He had an interview that could change everything, but fate didn't care about his timing. He woke at 5 as always, his body conditioned like muscle memory. The futon he slept on wasn't his, just a cushion on the hardwood of a friend's apartment in Tulsa. For 4 months it had been his only roof. He moved quietly, boiling water in an old kettle not for coffee but for steam, enough to press the only shirt he owned, pale blue, frayed at the collar, missing a cuff button, but if ironed just right it looked office-ready. His shoes, cracked black leather, got a shine from cooking oil rubbed in with a rag. "Interview at 10, don't be late," he muttered to the cracked mirror. By 7:30 he was out the door, bus fare and coins borrowed from Mr. Lawton downstairs, a retired veteran who drowned his days in westerns. Quinton promised he'd pay him back once hired. He walked with his head high, repeating interview questions in his mind. Strengths? Dependable, I show up, I care. Weaknesses? I don't ask for help even when I need it. Why do you want this job? Because I need a chance to build something I can be proud of. The building came into sight just before 9:30. DuPont Grove's Tulsa branch, sharp glass panels rising out of a quiet block. Quinton straightened his back. This was it. But before the crosswalk he saw her, a woman. Late 30s maybe, elegant in a silk blouse and trench coat, her heel wedged deep in a crack on the sidewalk. Cars honked as she tried to free herself. Coffee cup trembling in her hand. People passed, but no one stopped. Quinton's phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. He had a decision to make fast, and he didn't hesitate. "Need a hand?" he asked, crouching. She blinked, startled, then laughed nervously, trying to hide panic. "I don't know what happened." He tugged at the heel, working it side to side. "Yeah, you're in deep." "Got it." She braced against a pole, muttering about reckless drivers. He joked back, and after a final twist, the heel popped free. She stumbled, and he caught her elbow. She smiled, now relieved. "What's your name?" "Quinton Ray." "Well, Quinton Ray, thank you. I owe you one." Then she checked her watch, muttered about being late, and hurried off into the crowd. Quinton looked at his own watch. 9:54, his chest clenched. He sprinted across, nearly dropping his resume. "I'm here for the 10 o'clock, he told the receptionist, breathless. She clicked calmly, gave him a polite smile. "I'm sorry, Mr. Ray, Miss Ames was only scheduled until 10, she's already gone." The words hit like a brick. He forced a smile, nodded, whispered thank you, and walked out slowly. Outside, the sun felt harsher, the buses louder. He sat on a bench, folder heavy on his lap, and let the thought creep in. Maybe I blew it. But then he remembered the woman's face, how no one else had stopped. Doing the right thing doesn't always come with a reward, he told himself. Still, it was the right thing. Days passed in silence. No calls, no emails. He told his friend Corey the interview went fine. He didn't want sympathy. He started looking for janitor jobs, stocking shelves, anything that meant forward. Then Thursday afternoon the phone rang. A voice introduced herself as Alora Finch, assistant to Miss Maren DuPont. Quinton nearly dropped the phone. Miss DuPont wanted to reschedule his interview for tomorrow 9 a.m., with her personally. He stammered yes, absolutely. When the line cut, he just stood there, stunned. Mr. Lawton peeked from his recliner. "You all right, son?" Quinton smiled for real. "I think something just turned around." That night he couldn't sleep, not from despair this time, but anticipation. He kept replaying that crosswalk. By morning he was dressed again, shirt re-ironed, shoes polished, cuff stitched by hand. Corey insisted on driving. "No buses this time. You're walking in on time and breathing normal." The drive was quick. At the lobby, the receptionist's eyes were different, curious instead of dismissive. 6th floor, end of the hall. Quinton rode the elevator alone, palms sweaty, heart hammering. He knocked once. "Come in," said a warm, steady voice. She was there behind a glass desk, the same woman from the crosswalk. Hair sharp, jewelry simple, presence commanding. She smiled. "I was hoping it was you. Didn't know your name until 2 days ago, but I've been thinking about you." Quinton swallowed. You're Miss DuPont." She stood, shook his hand firmly. "Call me Maren." He blinked, words tangled. "You didn't say anything back then." She smiled. "I was late to a board meeting, but after I got upstairs I saw the security footage. You at the front desk, sweaty, wrecked, but still standing tall. That kind of thing sticks." Quinton laughed nervously. realizing that missing his shot on Tuesday might have been the reason he was standing in front of the person who could change his life completely. Not exactly the first impression I wanted to make, Quinton said, but Maren shook her head and told him he made the right one. She explained that she had interviewed 100 people for the analyst program, and most of them were forgettable. People who came in wearing the right shoes and saying the right things but never doing anything real. She motioned for him to sit and told him she wanted to hear about him. No resume talk, just who he was. Quinton took a breath and began. He told her about growing up in Sepulpa, about losing his mother, about dropping out of college to handle things that couldn't wait. He explained how he had been applying for jobs for months with no callbacks, how he'd been couch surfing and showing up at the workforce office every day as if it was his job. "I'm not trying to win points," he said quietly. "I just want to work. I want to contribute." Maren listened without a word. She didn't take notes, she didn't check the time, she just let him finish. Then she asked if he'd ever worked with data. A little, he admitted. He had taught himself Excel through YouTube, tracked bills and grocery budgets, even built a mock-up of a grocery app he once tried to pitch. She leaned forward and told him to show her. He blinked, fumbling, saying he didn't have a laptop. She slid hers across the desk. "You've got 10 minutes. His hands moved slower than he wanted, but he remembered the links, pulled up screenshots he had stored in his email drafts, and walked her through each tab and function. She never interrupted. When he finished, silence hung in the room. She asked if he had built all of that with no training. He nodded. She smiled faintly. "I like people who figure things out." Then she stood and told him, "That'll be all for today." He stood too, unsure what that meant. No offer, no rejection, just an ending that felt unfinished. Walking outside, the air felt strange, not lighter, not heavier, just uncertain. On the ride home, Corey asked how it went, but Quinton could only say he wasn't sure. That maybe she was impressed, maybe she was testing him, maybe both. That night he sat at the kitchen table in the same clothes, staring at a blank sheet of paper, trying to capture every word she had spoken, every look she gave, but it all slipped like steam through his fingers. He barely slept. Not from fear this time, but from curiosity. Why reschedule personally? Why not just reject him politely? Why ask him to show something and then give nothing back? By morning, the questions were still gnawing at him. Then the email came. From Alora Finch, short and direct. "Miss DuPont would like you to return Thursday at 1 p.m. Bring nothing." He read it 5 times. Bring nothing. It sounded like a summons more than an interview. Thursday arrived too slowly and then all at once. He pressed the same shirt, polished the same shoes, and arrived 10 minutes early, sitting upright in the lobby with folded hands. At 1 o'clock sharp, the elevator doors opened and Alora was waiting. This time she didn't lead him to Maren's office, but to a glass-walled conference room, where Maren sat at the head of the table, flanked by 2 men and a woman dressed in quiet money, sharp suits, expensive watches, the kind of confidence that never asked permission. Quinton's throat went dry. Maren gestured for him to sit. "This is not an interview," she said. One of the men explained that they had asked her to bring someone who could think on their feet, someone who could show judgment under pressure, and she told them she had someone in mind. Quinton blinked, realizing they meant him. Maren reminded him that the morning they met he had been late, had something at stake, but stopped to help her anyway. "You had no reason to stop," she said. "You chose someone else's problem over your own risk." The woman added that they ran a community outreach arm within DuPont Grove, small but growing, working with schools, businesses, and mentorship programs. They were considering expanding leadership with people who had lived through struggle. Quinton leaned in and asked if this was a job. "Not exactly," Maren said. It was a 30-day trial placement, working with their outreach coordinator. If he proved himself, they'd bring him on full-time. Quinton sat frozen, words stuck, until he finally breathed out. "I'll do it. Whatever you need." Smiles broke around the table. Maren stood and shook his hand. "This is yours to lose, Quinton Ray." He walked out feeling like he had been given something fragile, something he could not drop even once. It wasn't a job offer. It felt more like a dare. Monday came fast. He wore jeans, a clean tee, shoes polished again though the soles were wearing thin. Building B sat tucked behind the campus near the loading dock, more like a storage unit than corporate space. Inside were tables stacked with donation bins, posters from food drives, a whiteboard scribbled with schedules. At the desk sat a tall woman with copper curls, work boots, and glasses. You must be Quinton, she said, shaking his hand. I'm Jessa, Outreach Coordinator. She explained the programs: youth mentorship, senior meals, neighborhood cleanups, and the Second Start program for people trying to rebuild. Like me, Quinton said softly. Exactly, she grinned. The first week was sweat and chaos. Sorting clothes, hauling tables, scrubbing graffiti, keeping teenagers focused. Jessa worked him hard, gave no shortcuts, no special treatment. He learned to write grant updates, build spreadsheets, calm angry neighbors. It was exhausting but real. By the second week, things grew more complicated. Jessa was out sick, and Quinton was asked to oversee a prep meeting at the Second Start shelter. Nervous, he remembered her advice. Don't just follow a checklist, listen. So he listened, shaking hands, hearing complaints about food, about lost opportunities, listening to a man named Vernon explain how one medical bill had taken everything from him. Quinton felt it deep, realizing he had been close to this himself. Afterward, he cleaned up and made notes for Jessa. The next day, however, he was summoned to meet Rodney Hales, one of the men from the round table. Rodney studied him and said plainly, "This isn't a guaranteed job. You're here because Maren thinks there's something in you, but you haven't proven anything yet. Lifting boxes and smiling is easy. What happens when things go sideways?" Quinton thought before answering. "I adapt. I don't quit." Rodney held his stare. "We'll see." Quinton didn't know it, but the real test had already begun. The following morning, Jessa was still sick. A junior coordinator named Quinton sat at the front desk with an energy drink and told Quinton that Second Start had called for him specifically. Quinton grabbed supplies and took the bus across town. When he arrived, something felt wrong. Volunteers were absent, residents paced nervously, whispers filled the air. Vernon spotted him and pulled him aside. "They're about to throw out 3 people," he said. "Paperwork stuff. They never got the forms, but they're being told to leave." Quinton frowned, asked who said so. Vernon pointed to the back office. Inside sat a young woman at a desk, Tina Brost, the new admin coordinator. She said flatly, 3 residents didn't update their forms. No form, no stay, policy. Quinton asked if they had even received the forms. She shrugged, saying if it wasn't in the file, it didn't exist. He walked out uneasy and found the 3 residents on the back patio. An older man with a limp, a mother with 2 kids, and a teenager who couldn't be more than 19. They were packing their things. "You don't have to leave yet," Quinton told them. The mother's eyes welled. "They told us to go. Not yet," he said. "I'm making calls." He dialed Jessa. Sick and coughing, she still answered. He explained the situation. She told him to check the bottom drawer of the brown file cabinet behind the front desk to look for resident logs from March. If the forms were ever distributed, there would be signatures. Quinton hurried back inside. Tina looked up sharply. "What are you doing?" He steadied his voice. "Just need 2 minutes." She didn't stop him. Maybe she didn't think he'd find anything. He pulled open the drawer and began digging through files, heart pounding, knowing this moment would prove if he was truly ready for more than just lifting boxes. Quinton pulled open the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet and shuffled through a stack of outdated brochures until his fingers hit something heavier. A March logbook. He flipped through quickly, scanning lines until 3 names jumped out at him, each marked NA, forms never printed. He snapped a photo, printed a copy on the office machine, and carried it straight to Tina. She looked down at the page, stared for a long second, then lifted her eyes to him with something sharp and unreadable. "I didn't know," she said. "You do now," he answered. She didn't thank him, but she didn't argue either. And by noon, those 3 residents had new forms in their hands, a new deadline, and a spot still waiting for them. Vernon clapped him on the back, laughing. "Man, I don't know who you are, but you got it. We need more people like you." Quinton only smiled, saying nothing to Jessa, nothing to Quinton, nothing to Maren. He hadn't done it to score points. He just couldn't walk away. 2 days later, Maren called him into her office. The chair felt smaller this time, the room heavier. "Tell me about Tuesday at Second Start," she said. He sat steady. They were going to push people out over forms they never got. "I didn't think that was right." "It wasn't," she said. "You did the right thing, but that's not why you're here." He blinked. "It's not." She leaned back, folding her hands. "I wanted to see if you'd mention it." "You didn't. Not to Jessa, not to Quinton, not to anyone. I didn't think I needed to." "That's what impressed me," she said. Most people need to shine a spotlight on themselves. You just handled it and kept moving. It wasn't about me, he told her. It was about them. Exactly, she said. Her tone shifted, deliberate. I didn't bring you here for charity, Quinton. I brought you here because we need people who understand why this work matters, not just how to do it. He stared, waiting for the catch. So what now? She opened a drawer, set a folder in front of him. Inside, blueprints, grant plans, timelines. Lift Tulsa, she explained. A citywide partnership launching in 3 months. We need someone who can bridge both worlds, boardrooms and food pantries. Someone who doesn't change who they are depending on the room. He raised an eyebrow. You want me to run it? Not yet, she said, but I want you in the room. Strategy, funding, management. I want to build you up for something bigger. This doesn't feel real, he muttered. It didn't for me either, she said when I got my shot. Someone gave it to me. I'm giving it to you. Then her voice softened, carrying weight. You'll meet people who underestimate you. Some will say it, most won't. Every time they do, they'll be telling on themselves, not you. His throat tightened. She went on. I've been the only woman in rooms where the money talked over me and the power ignored me. I stopped waiting for approval. So should you. Why me? He asked. Because when I was stuck on the street, heels broken, looking helpless, you didn't hesitate. You just helped. That tells me more than any resume. He rose slowly. I'm in. I'm all in. She smiled, extending her hand, not as a test, but as a promise. Good. Monday we start real work. Planning sessions, partner meetings, strategy calls. Bring questions, bring opinions. He laughed. I've got both. Then we're in business, she said. Walking out into the Oklahoma sun, he realized this wasn't just a second chance. It was the first real one. But not everyone believed he belonged there. Monday morning he showed up not in work boots but in a crisp navy shirt and slacks Jessa had picked out. Inside, the air was different. He wasn't shadowing anymore. He was at the table. The West Conference Room gleamed with glass walls and panoramic city views. Maren led the Lift Tulsa presentation, standing beside a polished man in a blazer, Rodney Hales. He barely nodded when Quinton entered. Quinton sat tall, opened his notepad and listened. Maren introduced him to the room. He's been doing the work quietly for weeks, she said, and his insight is going to matter. Some glanced, some stiff smiles, and Rodney spun his pen between his fingers. When discussion opened, Quinton stayed silent until the topic shifted to outreach. He cleared his throat. Most people we're trying to reach don't trust institutions, he said. They've been told before someone's coming to help, and those people usually leave after a week. If this is going to work, we can't just launch websites and flyers. We've got to show up over and over until it feels like a relationship, not charity. A woman nodded. Another scribbled notes, but Rodney leaned forward. I appreciate the sentiment, Quinton, but this is a high-budget initiative. We can't center everything on soft trust. Deadlines and deliverables matter. Quinton met his eyes. Then we're building something that'll crumble the second we leave. Maren smiled faintly. That's why he's here. After the meeting, Rodney brushed past him at the coffee table. You're walking a fine line, he muttered. Maren's backing you now, but eventually people are going to ask what makes you qualified. Quinton's reply was steady. Maybe they should ask what made you forget why this place exists. Rodney gave a cold smile and walked away. Quinton didn't tell Maren. He focused on the work. Budget sessions, mapping neighborhoods for Wi-Fi hotspots, drafting mentorship programs, rewriting intake forms for clarity. One night he caught his reflection in the dark lobby glass. Same eyes, same face, but straighter now. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was building something, but someone was digging. Late one evening, he returned to his desk to find an envelope waiting. No name inside, a printout of his arrest record, an unpaid ticket spiraling into a suspended license, one overnight in county jail. The thing that had ended other job interviews before they began. His chest went heavy, but instead of hiding it, he carried it straight to Maren's office. She opened it, scanned, and didn't flinch. HR flagged it, she admitted. I overruled them. Why didn't you ask me, he asked. Because I wanted to see who you are now, not who you were on paper. Someone clearly wants this to matter, she added, sharper now. I'll find out who. I don't want trouble, Quinton said. I just want to work. She shook her head. You think this disqualifies you? Let me tell you something. She opened her own cabinet, pulled a file. When I was 24, I almost lost my business over a loan I co-signed. Debt collectors, courtrooms, begging a judge not to liquidate everything. You want to build something real, Quinton. Expect people to test your past. But your past doesn't define you. You do. He let out a long breath. So what now? Now, she said, you get back to work. I'll handle the rest. The next morning, Rodney Hales was reassigned quietly to another state. Quinton never asked and Maren never explained. From there, things moved fast. Lift Tulsa launched. Quinton was named assistant coordinator within weeks, full coordinator within months. He managed teams, sat across from city leaders, and returned to the shelter not as a volunteer but as a partner. At a press event, a journalist asked what changed everything for him. A stuck heel, he answered. People laughed, but he meant it. After the cameras cleared, he stepped onto the sidewalk, the same block where he'd first seen Maren struggling with her shoe. He looked at the crack in the pavement, thought of everyone who'd helped him, Lawton, Corey, Jessa, people who gave without expecting anything. That's what people forget, he thought. Kindness isn't convenient. It's true. As he walked back to the office, two teens argued on the corner. One dropped a folder of papers. Without thinking, Quinton bent down, gathered them, handed them back. Thanks, man, the kid said. No problem, Quinton replied, heading on. Because the part of the resume that matters most is the one nobody sees. The moments when you help because it's right, not because anyone's watching.